Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition right here on Thumb Coast TV. I'm Brady Beedon. He's Dennis Stuckey. Basketball postseason in full swing. Boys started last week. Girls start this week. Let's start with what's already happened in boys basketball. Division I, we had two teams, Port Huron High, Port Huron Northern, and they fell to the same fate. That district got started on Wednesday for those two teams because they were the 1 and 2 seeds in the district. PH got L'Anse Creuse North, and one bad quarter sunk them.
Yeah, they had a bad second quarter and just never could make up the difference there. Ended up losing 55-44. They really didn't shoot well, and that was because defensively they did all right. They knocked over 20 points off of the first meeting with L'Anse Creuse North when I think they scored 78 points against them. So they held them to 55. No problem there. No problem really with their effort. They played hard. They just couldn't make a shot to save their lives. They were horrible from three-point range. Garrett James, I've never seen Garrett James go 1 for 14 from three, but that's what he did. And it wasn't just him. Everybody was off. Carswell had 12 in the first half. L'Anse Creuse North shut him down in the second half, and he didn't score. Really, if not for Jackson Rowe, who had 15 points and knocked down 4 threes, the Redhawks wouldn't even have been around in this one. It was just a tough night shooting, and I don't know what you can say for that. I mean, they ran their plays. They normally knock a lot of those down, but on this particular night, nothing went down for them.
So we were really hoping for a PH Northern final. Northern got over the hump of Dakota, a team that has knocked them off seemingly every year. It's not quite as much as it actually feels like, but they got Dakota in the first round. Oh, I guess the second round, their first game of the districts. And not only did they slay the beast, they did so with ease.
Yeah, and remember, Dakota snuck through because Anchor Bay actually had them down with 30 seconds to go on Monday night, and Dakota pulled it out. But Northern wasn't going to have anything to do with Dakota. Early on in the game, I think Dakota was up by 7 at one point, and I didn't feel nervous. Like, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, no, it's going to happen again. I actually was like, Northern's got this. A couple of shots didn't go down. Those are going to go in. And that's what started to happen. The shots started to go in, and Northern got great performances. Haru had 23 points. Amir had 20 points. And all the other components checked in. They were terrific defensively. Tyrese Johnson scored 9 in the third. He made 3 big three-point shots. Northern took over the game, and they never looked back, and they actually coast to a 19-point win, which was actually, it was worse going into the final couple of minutes when the teams emptied their bench, and in garbage time, Dakota got it back under 20 points.
So that set up PHN and L'Anse Creuse North in the final. Northern couldn't get it done. They struggled shooting a bit, and L'Anse Creuse North played pretty darn well, and L'Anse Creuse North spoils both PH and Northern seasons as L'Anse Creuse North wins that district.
Well, this was an interesting game. It was a frustrating game. At one point in the second half, Northern was down 16. They cut it to 8 with seconds to go in the third quarter, and a kid knocked down a 3 to make it an 11-point game at the buzzer. And you're like, man, it's just not their night. And then they dominated the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. The Huskies outscored them 13-0. Scored a bucket to take a 56-54 lead. The place was going crazy, but from that point on, they spent so much energy, I think, getting back into the game and getting it tied and getting into the lead because they would fight back. They'd get, okay, they're within 3 if they can get a stop, and L'Anse Creuse North would make a basket. So it took them a while to kind of finally get to the point where they could take the lead. And then they didn't have anything left for the finish. The last 2 minutes they struggled and got outscored 10-4 and lost 64 to 60. And it was just kind of a really frustrating night, disappointing night. But I can't be angry with the Huskies' effort. Again, you wish they could have made a few more shots, but they really got badly outdone from three-point land. They only made 3 threes, and we're used to them doing that sometimes in a quarter.
Right.
There was a stretch in the game where L'Anse Creuse North, particularly the Thomas kid, couldn't miss. He hit 5 threes, and just no matter where he was on the floor, he knocked it right down the middle. He scored 26 points. He'd only scored 9 against PH. And the other kid was Aaron Cook. Didn't score against PH, had 10 points in this game, and the last shot he took was the only shot he took probably in the fourth quarter. He stepped back and knocked down a 3 after they had fallen behind to give them the lead right back, 57-56. And I don't even know what he was doing out there shooting the ball.
But he buried it. He buried it. All right, Division 2. We had 2 separate districts to look at. We'll start where I was at. You had St. Clair, Marysville, Marine City, Armada, Richmond, Algonac with the 6 teams there. Opening night back on Monday. It was Marysville, Marine City to get it started. Marine City threw a couple of decent punches at Marysville, but as expected, the Vikings held on, got a 15-point win. Richmond dominated Algonac on Monday. That wasn't much of a surprise. It got us to Wednesday night, which was a couple of big rivalry games. Marysville, St. Clair. It was a battle. Marysville threw everything they had. Mackay Radford Donowa, who we know has been a star, played like a superstar in this one. In the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, he said, "Give me the ball. I'm not getting denied." And there were times where guys like Braylon Franz and Drew McCartney were coming over help side to stop him, playing good defense, and he found a way to score anyway. Marysville actually took the lead in the fourth quarter in this game, only for a brief moment. St. Clair got it right back. Marysville came up a little short. They ended up losing by 4 points. But St. Clair had a scare. It wasn't just a good first quarter effort. There was a time in the fourth quarter where you thought maybe the Saints do get upset here.
Yeah, but again, if there was a team that could pull this off, Marysville was the team that you thought, okay, on their home court, they've been playing pretty well, and it's a tough district for St. Clair on the basis of everybody's telling them how good they are, everybody's telling them that they should win this thing, that sometimes you forget to go out and actually win the thing.
Right.
But they survived this storm or this scare, and they were prepared for Friday and the district final.
Yeah, so the other game was Richmond and Armada. And the way I described it to you was Richmond played fine. They played a decent game. They kind of let Armada be their own worst enemy, and that's been the case in the back half of this season where the first half, we had expectations for Armada. We thought they could compete for a BWAC title. We thought they could compete for a district title. Something changed midway through the season, and they didn't have a whole lot of fight against Richmond. Richmond kind of blew them out on Wednesday night, which I thought Richmond had a decent shot to win the game. I didn't know they would run past them quite like they did.
Yeah, and again, in a one-game situation, Richmond has a nice team, and they can be a little spooky. And yeah, Armada just kind of floundered to the finish line this season. After the start they had, and I saw them at Christmas time, and I was very excited about this team. And then it just kind of fizzled out. So Richmond winning and getting to the finals wasn't a surprise. And also what happened in the finals wasn't a surprise. Again, is Richmond capable on a given night of putting it together and, they catch St. Clair on an off night? Yeah. But if you're not going to catch St. Clair on an off night, if that part of the equation isn't happening, then you're just not going to beat them when they're on their game. And after being scared by Marysville, I suspected that they were not going to allow themselves to get into a situation where Richmond could beat them.
And St. Clair gets the 65-46 win to win the district title. Richmond gave it a little bit of a fight in the middle quarters, but Braylon Franz had 22, Drew McCartney had 18, and it ended up how we thought it would end up with St. Clair winning the district. Marysville gave them a big challenge, but they bounced back pretty nicely against Richmond and never really were scared in this final.
All right, let's get to the meets.
Yeah, so up in Croswell, Started off just one game on Monday. You saw this one, North Branch beat Almont. North Branch wasn't challenged too much, although it didn't amount to much because Yale took care of North Branch on Wednesday.
Yeah, Yale, the better team here. Although I did enjoy seeing North Branch, and I have a new appreciation. Will Racine's a pretty good basketball player.
The other side was a very interesting game. Croslex, Emily City. Again, this one up in Croswell. This one came down to the final bit. Cam Saunders, 10 seconds left, buries a three to give them the lead. And then the answer, Nash had a look from inside the paint, just put a little too much on it, and Croslex survived with a 1-point win. And they get to a district final. And the fact that Croslex and Emily City played a 1-point game was about the least surprising thing out of any district game.
No, because that was flip a coin. We have no idea who's going to win this game. And Croslex on their home floor was able to pull this out heroically. They need a lot of cardiac medicine up in Croswell for the two games that they played in this district, because they were both right down to the wire and both right down to the last shot.
So the next game, Croslex-Yale. Pretty big rivalry. Not a lot of love lost between those two schools. This was a low-scoring, grinded-out game. Neither of us saw it, but from what we understand, each side had a lead, and then each side gave up a lead. And at the end, there was 3.2 seconds left. Croslex was inbounding from under their own basket. Inbound comes in, still in the backcourt in front of the midcourt circle. Kid catches it, looks, passes it off to the left sideline. Max Knoll grabs it, rips through, takes a dribble or two, throws up a prayer, buried it from midcourt. Place goes nuts. Officials wave off.
Would have tied the game.
Yes, would have tied the game at 34. It was 34-31. Shot would have tied the game, sent it to overtime. Officials wave off the shot, say, did not count. Now, why did they do this? Because when the ball was inbounded, the clock did not start for at least a good 2 seconds. It was, Dennis, we saw two different videos. We saw the one that plays over the NFHS network. It's the score bug's not very reliable. You can tell what's going on, but that's about it. You're not getting much detail. There was also essentially a home movie made. Someone had their phone out filming, and in that one you can very clearly see when the ball gets in, it's caught, turned, passed. As the camera pans, that the clock just starts probably a second or two into the play. Now, I timed it out. Again, it's an inexact science, but with my phone and looking at the video, it never got above 3 seconds from touch to shot going off. So what, had this been the NBA or had this been, college basketball, you might be able to review it and say it counts. However, the officials were put in an impossible spot, and they said, does not count, Yale wins the game.
Yeah, now, again, I'm not accusing anybody of skullduggery here, because there's very honest people running that clock. But you put the refs in a bad situation by it not running for those couple of seconds, because if they then count that shot, it just looks bad. It looks bad. It looks like home cooking. It looks like, the cheat is on.
Right.
And again, I don't think that's what was happening. The officials are just put in a bad spot. If this happens at Yale and a Yale timer doesn't start the clock and Croslex makes that shot, the refs might go, well, your fault for not starting the clock. We're going to count this basket. So it might go the other way.
Right.
But
now, we were talking about probably the best course of action with hindsight. You talk and you go, the clock didn't start, we don't know, redo the play. Replay it. Now you're probably not hitting another half-court shot, but at least you give them a chance.
Yeah.
They called it no good. Again, it would have only forced overtime. So it's not like they took a win away, they took 4 minutes away. And the other thing, Dennis, they only scored, that would have given them 34 points. If every Croslex fan is honest with themselves, if you say you score 34 points against Yale, not many are picking them to win that game.
Yeah, and just with the officials, they talked about it for a long time. I am going to assume that one or more of them said, I am pretty positive that they didn't get that done in 3 seconds and that's why we're not going to count this basket. The game is over. I think if one or more of the officials said, hey, I'm pretty sure that we should just do it over because, that's the fairest thing to do. But I'm going to assume that somebody in that crew or more than one of them said, no, we're pretty sure he didn't get it off in time anyways, and that's why they stopped the game.
All right, that will set up a Yale-St. Clair regional, a semifinal. Someone will make it to a regional final. We also have girls districts coming up this week. We'll take a break, come back, talk about the girls' side of the basketball postseason when we come back here on the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition, right here on Thumb Coast TV.
From doctor's appointments to work, shopping, and dining adventures, Blue Water Area Transit buses are the lifeline of our community. Depend on us for a ride that connects you to life's essentials. Blue Water Area Transit. Ride the wave.
Riding the bus will avoid the hustle and save you lots of dough. Road rage, don't chance it. Ride Blue Water Transit everywhere you go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition. We already talked about the boys' districts. Let's talk about the girls. Dennis, the girls' districts tip off tonight on Monday. But with the three main districts we're going to talk about, unlike on the boys' side, there's some clear favorites in each one. Division I. Good news is we're probably getting one of PH or Northern to the final. The way it shakes out on their side of the bracket, Northern plays L'Anse Creuse North tonight. Northern a pretty heavy favorite in that one. The winner plays Port Huron High. So someone, assuming Northern wins tonight, someone getting to the finals where they'll likely meet Anchor Bay.
Yeah, I'd say Anchor Bay is the favorite here. They've played the best basketball all season long. At times, Northern and PH this year, I thought were good enough to win this district. But they both kind of have limped down the finish line. And my confidence level isn't as high as it was, say, a month ago. Again, Northern should be all right in the opener. And then I'm not even sure who's going to win between them and PH. PH has kind of had their number recently. I know Northern feels like they can win that game, and they want a shot to win that game and to show that they can. And maybe if they did, that would give them a better shot on Friday because their confidence would be at a high. But their confidence isn't real high going into this. They've really struggled with their shooting. PH also has they're not playing the way they did when I saw them back in December and back during the Weimer event, where I thought, wow, this is a really good basketball team that does a lot of good things. Weber and Turner are sensational. The PH bigs disrupt. They do things even if they're not scoring, and they can score. But all of that has the down the stretch here, the last month of the season, it really hasn't been good for these two teams. No. And so it's hard for me to get pumped for it.
Yeah, well, again, maybe the districts are what they needed to relight the fire, but Anchor Bay's been pretty darn good. They pretty much dominated the MAC White. Now, for PH, they played in the red, so they're used to playing teams like that, but like you said, they struggled against a lot of those teams. Anchor Bay does need to get by Dakota in all likelihood to get there, so I don't think it's an absolute given, but they're the favorite to get there.
Yeah, well, I think if Dakota pulled off the upset, that would certainly make PH happy because they kind of had Dakota's number this year, and so they would feel good about that. But again, they'd have to get by Northern, who will be motivated, assuming they get the rematch. And I'm going to assume that Northern's, no matter how much they've struggled, they're better than L'Anse Creuse North.
Division II districts feel kind of the same way, where there's one team that's on top. The one I'll be at and will be at covering, Division II out at Richmond. Starts with Marine City Algonac, and then it's Marysville Richmond in the opening round. Winner of Marine City Algonac takes on Armada. Winner of Marysville Richmond takes on St. Clair. Armada's the heavy favorite here.
Yeah, Armada is going to be a big-time favorite against whoever wins the Marine City Algonac game. I don't want to slight those teams and say Armada's got to bye to the finals, but Armada has got a big favorite stamped on their back to get to the finals. I really like the way Marysville is playing. I think they're going to beat Richmond, and then Marysville St. Clair. That will be probably the best game of the district. But in all honesty, as well as both those teams can play, and as much as both those teams can shut it down defensively, I do think it'd be a low-scoring game with Armada. But to me, it's Armada's to win. They're the best team, and as long as they don't come out and have a bad game, and we've seen it with the boys, where a bad night shooting will cost you in a game where you think you're going to win. But assuming that doesn't happen with Armada, they're the favorite in this one.
Yeah.
Can St. Clair or Marysville give them a game? Yeah, but they're going to spend a lot of energy against each other trying to get to that game.
And that's why, like, the St. Clair-Marysville potential matchup intrigues me, because Marysville is a wholly different team than they were 5-6 weeks ago. Start of the calendar year, I'm going, all right, let's just get to St. Clair Armada and see if St. Clair can pull off an upset of some sort. Marysville now can give St. Clair a game and maybe make that one interesting. But again, Armada they've been preparing themselves against some of the best, not just in the area, but in the state. I mean, they did lose to Flint Powers and Ike, but those are two really, really strong teams. So their level of competition much better than what's in the district. They've been preparing for regional and quarterfinal games rather than preparing for district games.
Yeah, they've put down the stretch. They weren't too worried about record. They want to share their league title, mission accomplished, and we're going to play out of our weight class, like you said, to get prepared for a deep playoff run, because that's what they want.
Now, the other team trying to do that in their conference, the Yale Bulldogs, they're up in Croswell. Oh, no, they're in Yale, excuse me.
Yeah.
And they have actually the exact same district as the boys do, or did. Elmont North Branch in the opener. Winner plays Yale. Croslex Emily City on the bottom half. It's a little more feasible that Croslex knocks off Yale than someone beating Armada, because I think Croslex is better than all the teams in Armada's district. But it still feels like Yale's to lose, doesn't it?
Yeah, and again, Croslex hasn't actually been playing great down the stretch. I think they won a couple of games in the last week to make me feel a little bit better. But they went through a stretch, too, where the ball wasn't going in for them, and they were losing some games that you thought they'd had a chance to win. But for me, Yale, again, they're going to beat North Branch or Elmont, whoever wins that game. They have the best player, and they also have home court advantage, and they also have a real good supporting cast for Sadie Dykstra. So Yale is the strongest team. And in the finals, I just watched them dismantle Emily City. So if Croslex were to stumble, again, it was just a week ago that the Emily City was not a threat to them. And I don't, they beat Croslex during the regular season as well, both times that they played them. So confidence level on Yale is as high as any of the three districts that we really care about. Yale should win, and if they don't, it'll probably be because they didn't do something the way they normally do.
No, and again, like you said, I don't mean to disparage any of the other teams. It's just the three we talked about, Yale and Armada, the ones we cover, Anchor Bay, kind of on the very outskirts of ones we talk about. They've just proven that a lot more than the other teams have thus far.
And we'll be totally honest here. We'll be totally transparent. We want round 3 of Yale and Armada, and that would happen if they both win a district.
Yes.
Because we want to know who's better between those two. We need a tiebreaker in this series.
So speaking of the rematches, St. Clair Yale in boys is a rematch. That's a regional game that will happen on Tuesday out at Yale. It was supposed to be at Emily City. They had issues with their gym. They relocated it to Yale. So, Yale, St. Clair at Yale now. Winner of that one will play either Centerline or Notre Dame Prep. St. Clair handled Yale the first time. I mean, handled them. Held Jackson Kohler to 11, I believe a season low. Braylon Franz went off for 27. That was back on December 17th. Long time ago. Can Yale erase a 23-point loss?
Well, it's interesting because I think that was the win that kind of set St. Clair on their course for the season they ended up having. Because at the time, they were 2-3, and I think that made them 3-3, or that made them 4-3. Yeah, so I mean they were playing okay basketball, but not great basketball. They did have some tough teams early in their schedule too, which is also another part of the reason they were 3-3, as they played some real heavyweights early on. But that could have been bad news for Yale, but let's give the Bulldogs credit because then they won like 11, 12, 13 in a row, whatever it was, after losing that game. So that might have been the kick in the pants that they needed, just to remind them that you can't take a night off or somebody can beat you. So it's real interesting. I don't know that St. Clair is that much better than Yale as that score would indicate, and that's why I'm excited to have this game to find out. But even on the road, I'm kind of getting a slight edge for St. Clair because even if Kohler does what he does, Franz will probably do what he does, and they cancel each other out. And when I look at the supporting cast, I just feel like St. Clair gets more from their guys. First off, they have more of them. They go 8, 9, 10 deep. And they get more of it than Yale does. Like Yale's Fisher, Debs, Hubbard, those guys are going to have to show up, and they're going to have to do something in this game.
And remember, Yale just scored 34 points in a district final. 34 points ain't getting it done against St. Clair.
No.
You're not going to hold them to it.
Not going to win that game.
You're not going to grind it out like that. You're going to have to score minimum 50 points if you want to be in it. You're probably going to have to push 60 if you want to find a way to get this done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so we'll see. Again, home court advantage, don't count that out. Yale's a tough gym for anybody to go in and win. But again, I've seen Croslex do it this year. They might have been the only one.
Emily City did it.
Yeah, that's true. The BWAC was crazy that way, where everybody went on the road and won in the top part of that league to decide that title. But this will be. I'll be disappointed if this isn't a better game than the first time around. And yes, at home Yale has a chance to win, but I got to give St. Clair a slight edge going in because I just like their depth.
Other teams that did win a district, mostly up in the thumb, Harbor Beach, they won their district. They beat Lakers by 9 to capture that one. That one not too unexpected. What was a little surprising is Brown City beat Sandusky to win the district. I don't think many people had the Green Devils tasked with winning a district title.
No, they did not have a big year this year, so it's got to feel good for them to win a district. And I know Sandusky is a rival for them. And Sandusky's probably shocked because they were probably thinking they were going to win that game, but they also might have been thinking, yeah, we're going to win that game and then have to play Harbor Beach.
Harbor Beach has been pretty darn good this year. They're hoping for a deep, deep run. Deckerville, they blew out Ubley to get the win in their district final. Ubley was second place in that league, only to Harbor Beach. Yeah. So that was a bit surprising. Not maybe that Deckerville won, but the fact that they ran away with it.
Yeah, they won rather easily, and they scored a bunch of points. I think they scored 78 points. So obviously Deckerville playing with some confidence, and I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
Yes, indeed. So St. Clair will take on Yale. We talked about that. Harbor Beach, Brown City, and then Kingston, Deckerville, the only boys teams we have left in the regionals.
And that's Kingston, Deckerville's a big rivalry.
More so in the fall, but in
But it's
basketball,
a big rivalry. Those two schools don't like each other.
Especially with a regional final appearance on the line. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition. He's been Dennis Stuckey. I'm Brady Beedon. Next week, we'll recap the boys' regional finals, tell you who took the home to district crowns in girls basketball, and more. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week right here on Thumbcoast TV.